Hi, I'm David Robbins with the Wakanda Technical Services team here in San Jose, California. And today, I'm laying out the Wakanda Challenge to everyone who loves to build Web 2.0 applications. The challenge: build a Web 2.0 to-do list in under 20 minutes. It must have support for to-do and completed items. You have to be able to order items by priority, and you have to have a secure application that supports multiple users. So, that's the challenge. See if you can do it in under 20 minutes. And I'll tell you what, I'll go first. So let's jump into Wakanda Studio. Okay, I'm going to launch the studio, create a brand new project. I'm going to call it To-Do List. And since it's going to be a multi-user application, let's go into the directory and create a couple of users. So, I'll create David Robbins and Brian Green, put in a couple of passwords. Okay, let's save the directory. Now, let's go build our data model. I'm going to build a base class which will only be accessible on the server. So the attributes for this application will be title and priority, complete, create date, which will be a date field, complete date, and last, let's put user ID so we can store the unique user ID of each of our users. Okay, so we have the base class that's going to be public on server. It will not be accessible from the client. Let's extend this class so we can have a class accessible from the browser. But we're going to put in a restricting query on our extended class so that users can only see their to-do list. So there you go. Let's save that. Now let's do an on-init on our base class. Initialize some of our attributes. If the current user is not null, that means somebody has signed in. Then we're going to store our user ID, and the current user function will have the ID of the currently signed in user. This refers to our current entity, so we can set the attributes. Let's set priority to 2 as a default, and let's set the create date to today's date. Let's save that. And in onValidate, if the current user is null, that means they haven't signed in, then we're going to return an error object. And the error object has two properties: error, which we can set to a number, I'll just pick 5, and error message. That will be the message returned back to the browser, and we can display that in any fashion we choose. I'll just say you must sign in. So let's save that. And we are done with our model. Let's go into the studio and build our page. So my to-do list, I have to think of a super killer name. Don't forget to pay the rent. That sounds good. And let's go, the studio will let us do our styling. I don't have to go edit the CSS myself. Wakanda will create it for me. So we're going to have a multi-user application. So let's use the login widget. Also, I might want to display some errors. So the display error object is basically a div, and I can pass my errors to that. Okay, let's save that. So I'm going to use the tab widget, and on one tab I will put my to-do list, and on the other tab I'll put my completed items. So the first tab will be the to-do list, and let's add another tab. I'll just say complete. Save our progress. So let's go into the first tab. Now you can see I have a link to my model, and if I drag it onto the page, Wakanda will ask me what do I want to do. I'll create a form. Now that's created a data source that will be tied to the model for the to-do list, and that data source will be loaded into the browser and communicate back and forth to the server and basically act as a proxy to our model on the server. Anyway, what I'm doing now is I'm just styling my form basically into a row format, and then I'm going to place this in the matrix widget, which will then repeat it. And the matrix widget is a very cool Wakanda widget, and you'll see it in action in just a little bit. So Wakanda gives me some tools to align my widgets. It's a very nice studio for building your application. Okay, so now I'll save, get the matrix widget, drop it on the page, size it. Now I'm going to take my form, my container, and the form elements and drag it into the matrix, which will then basically repeat that. And when you see the matrix in action, I think you'll really love it. Okay, so let's save that. So now let's grab a button, and I'll drag my data source on top of the button to link it to the to-do list data source, and I'll make that a create button. I'll also have another button for saving a to-do list item. So let's align those. Now my save button, I want to not have it be automatic because I want to do a few things. So I'm going to access the Wakanda application framework, which gets loaded onto the client. Sources will give me a pointer to all the data sources I've created and to-do list. So .complete date will reference the current complete date at the time I'm trying to save, and I'm going to set that to the new date. And then I'm going to do a save of the entity. So I'm going to pass an options object to the save so that it will be an asynchronous save. And I have two callbacks, on success and on error. So I'm going to write the functions for the on success and on error. They both get passed back an object. So this is a function also, and I get passed back an error object. Okay, there we go. Let's save that. So if my entity was saved successfully, then I'm going to access the to-do list data source and do a query so that I can just reload it. And what I want is all the entities where complete is null, and I want to order by priority. Now, I've been passed an event object to the onSuccess handler, and I want to check if complete. If it's not equal to null, that means that the item has been moved over to the completed list. So I'm going to use my error div and just display a message so that the user can know that that item has been moved over to the completed list. So I'll use jQuery to reference the error div, and jQuery is loaded when Wakanda loads, so you can access it to do your utility functions. So I'm going to pass back a message basically saying that the title of the item has been moved to the completed list, and period, and that looks good. Okay, let's save that. Now, if for some reason our save did not pass validation, then I want to display the error that I created in the onValidate function on the server. So this is how I get my message back from the error object, and I'll use jQuery again to display the message from the onValidate method. So there you go. Okay, let's save that. So we have our save button handled. So next, I think let's go into the complete tab, and we want to display our completed items. So I'll use a grid on this side, a little simpler. It's another great Wakanda widget. I'll set it to read only. Now I'm going to duplicate my data source. This other data source is going to point to the same data store on the server, but I will do different queries against it so that I get the completed items instead of the to-do list items. So let's drag that onto the grid, and that binds the completed list data source to this grid. And I'm going to do a little bit of sizing here, make it look nicer. Okay, that looks good. Now all we have to do is some housekeeping here for the to-do list. On the onload of the page, I want to do a couple of things. I want to do a query on both of my data sources. Basically, if I do a query on my data sources, the restricting query will load the proper entities. So if no one is signed in, it will basically load 0 entities, and the widgets will be updated to show nothing, which is what we want. So now let's do the query for the completed list. Complete is true. And a little more housekeeping here. Let's just set our error div to show no message. And since we're just loading the page, let's use jQuery to disable our new and our save button. There we go, button 1, and we'll set the attribute disabled, set that to true, and let's go ahead and do that for button 2. Anyway, are you keeping track of time? I hope I'm on pace to get this done. We're almost there. So when someone logs out, we want to basically do this housekeeping again. Okay, that looks good. Let's save that. Now, when someone signs in successfully, we will basically do the query on our data sources, which will load their entities. We'll set our error message to blank, but this time we're going to enable our buttons so that people can create new to-do list items and save them. So let's get our reference to those objects and remove the disabled attribute. There you go. And for button 2, let's save that. Okay, we're almost done. Just a little bit of housekeeping on our menu items. When we click our menu item 1, we'll reset our error message and we'll do the query of our to-do list data source, and let's do the complete tab. When a user clicks on the complete tab, we will do a little housekeeping, set our error message to blank, and do a query on our completed list data source. Let's save that. Okay, what your stopwatches say, because we are done. So let's test the app. I think that took about 15 minutes. Don't forget to pay the rent. Let's sign in. Let's create some to-do list items. So I'm going to create my first item. Buy some milk. Save it as priority 2. Send flowers to Mom. And call my little sister. So I can set the priority of sending Mom flowers up to 1. It moves to the top of the list. I bought my milk. I saved it. Buy some milk has been moved to the complete list. There it is. There's my to-do items. I sign out. Clears the list. Let's sign in as our other user. Mr. Green. Everybody knows it ain't easy being green. Okay. Mr. Green wants to remember to download Wakanda, and next he's going to remind himself to build some killer web apps using Wakanda. And let's complete that. Download Wakanda, finished. Build some killer web apps, done. Okay, so that's my 15 minutes. How fast can you do it?